If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Law by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the masquerade. In this episode, we will be exploring the Anarch Movement, the sect that has raised many an elder eyebrow in recent years. We will be discussing their origins, motives, and what sort of cultures these kindred live. Yes, now I will answer that question. The question I wasn't going to answer for you when we were in Elysium earlier tonight. The individuals who were not suited and booted, as they say. The ones who entered Elysium with torn-up jeans and leather jackets, spiked-up hair that looked like wannabe goths and punks. They are representatives of the Anarch Movement. For many years, the Anarch Movement was not a sect in the traditional sense that the Camarilla and the Sabbat were. Anarchs are vampires who reject the status quo of canine society. Under the name the Anarch Movement, the organization was under the authority of the Ivory Tower. The Camarilla would say the Anarchs are under their protection, whilst the Anarchs would call it a suffocating oppression. The Anarchs resent the privileged status held by the elders within the Camarilla and other vampire sects, when the elders hold most power in the society of immortals. That being said, most of the Anarchs respect and uphold the Masquerade and some other traditions, even when they do not respect the vampires who enforce them or the system that benefits from them, as per the terms of the Convention of Fawns, which was established during the Vampire Dark Ages. Two growing movements made these Canaanites rethink their ways of living during the Dark Ages. First came the threat of a group of merciless vampire hunters from the Roman Catholic Church called the Inquisition, who were, and still are to an extent, able to smite us to ash with nothing but their faith alone. Terrified, elders reacted by eagerly sacrificing the younger Canaanites, which are known as neonates, as a means of protection. This ignited the first Anarch Revolt, where large numbers of younger vampires rebelled against their elders, for they no longer wished to be manipulated by the older Canaanites. There were, of course, some who also wished that power for themselves. The founders-to-be, the Ventru Hardestat and the Tremere Councillor Melinda, recognised the need for a united front. It is said they banded together with several of their most trusted chowder and servants for a meeting in Vienna to agree upon a joint task force of sorts to use against the Anarchs, a name whose origins lie with such elders. And thus the Camarilla was born, or should I say embraced. At around about 1435 AD, the founders began to openly rally and support vampires from the dangers of the newly formed Anarchs, the invading Assamites, and the plentiful mobs of dangerous mortals. It would be some 60 years before a peace agreement between the leaders of the Camarilla, the Anarchs, and the Assamites were made. This was known as the Convention of Fawns, which marked the end of the first Anarch Revolt and the birth of the Camarilla as it is known today. Those who didn't accept the terms would form the Sabbat, a sect that believes they should enslave mortals and not hide from their true natures from the mere cattle. As I had said previously, the Anarch Movement was not a sect per se, but was considered a part of the Camarilla, consisting of a faction on the fringes of the dominant Camarilla hierarchy. It was during the last century that the Anarchs would begin to brand themselves as the Anarch Movement. They have begun to establish their own traditions, power blocks, territories, and all other trappings of a full-fledged sect. I was first aware of the term being used during the second Anarch Revolt, which took place in LA, Los Angeles, in 1944, where these Anarchs liberated the city. In doing so, they established an Anarch-free state across the southern and central California, overthrowing the princes of the liberated cities and establishing the Anarch barons in their place. Consider them the Anarch equivalent of the Ivory Tower's prince, but without the self-righteous arrogance. To my immediate knowledge, the state of LA is currently being fought between four factions: the Anarchs in what remains of the Free State, the Kuei-jin centered around San Francisco, the Camarilla with footholds in Los Angeles and San Diego, and the Sabbat to the south in Mexico. What's that? Who are the Kuei-jin? The Kuei-jin are the Kindred of the East, vampires of Asia. I would go further into this topic, but the information from my Kindred associates have been rather inconsistent, so I will unfold the greater details another time when I am certain that I have all the facts correct. On a functional level, the Anarch movement has some hierarchy beyond a baron. The emissary are the equivalent of the Camarilla's harpies. They must negotiate and haggle and play the games of prestation and diplomacy if the movement is to survive. The sweeper is the census collector of the kindred in the baron's domain, whilst the chameleon acts as a mole, spying on anarchs of power in the baron's domain. For hundreds of years, the Anarch movement mostly consisted of younger vampires, neonates and caitiffs. Since the rise of the Second Inquisition in about 2009, the sect has been bolstered by Clan Brujar, followed by the followers of Set, now rebranded as the Ministry. Clan Gangrel have also joined the Anarchs. The more progressive barons have even allowed more Finbloods and caitiffs into the Anarch movement, two breeds of kindred who have usually been seen as sub-tier scum. That is not to say the clans usually associated with the Camarilla are not found within the Anarch movement, and vice versa. They are referred to as Unchained Malkavians, Red Nosferatu, Abstract Toreadors, Ipsimus Tremere, and Free Ventru respectively. Don't look at me like that, I didn't come out with such millennial terms. I could go into further detail concerning the first and the second Anarch revolts, but I feel that they are conversations for another time. But from all of this, you should understand by now that the Anarch movement believes in change, but is not collectively committed to any given plan. Ask 10 different Anarchs and you get 20 different answers. Common threads do crop up, such as the redistribution of power from the elders and the search of a more equilibrium between all levels of kindred. But where the Anarch movement lack in organisation, they more than make up in passion. Whether you are a neonate who punches first and asks questions never, or a soft-spoken ancillary, they are all collectively driven, believing in what they say rather than passing it off as naivete or inexperience with the jihad. Whether you love them or hate them, the Anarch movement have managed to accomplish things that centuries of power and manipulation couldn't. And change terrifies those Ivory Tower elders in power. To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we will upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, and you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.